The call to lead usually starts with a call to serve. That could be serving God, but also serving others, serving our spouses, serving our churches, serving our communities. What impact can a person have when they commit to serving well in their local community? We'll talk about that today with Pastor Jase Waller on Call to Lead. All right, welcome again to the Call to Lead podcast. We're here with my friend Jase Waller today, and Jase is a pastor at Telephone Baptist Church. He wears a lot of different hats, so we're going to talk about that today. First, Jase, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. Thanks for asking me to come on with you, Colby. I've watched some of the podcasts. They're really good and having a good time, it seems like.
I am. I don't know if anybody else is having a good time, but I'm having a good time.
I understand.
So, well, why don't you give us a little background about yourself? Tell us just kind of where you serve now. I know we said you're at Telephone, but kind of tell us about that. Tell us about your family and just a little information about Jase.
Sure. I serve at Telephone Baptist Church. Been there 7 years, almost 8. Be 8 in November. And we're planning on coming here. It was just kind of one of those things. It was a God thing. And here we are doing our thing. Tammy, my wife, teaches at Sam Rayburn, 5th grade. We have 2 daughters. They're both teachers. Kendall teaches at Sam Rayburn math. I don't understand that stuff, but coaches volleyball. And our son, our oldest daughter, Bailey, she teaches out in Slayton in West Texas. And our son is a youth minister in Conway at Woodland Heights Baptist Church. So that's kind of who we are. They're kind of divide and conquer and doing their thing. So it's always a good thing. We ended up here. I wasn't planning on going in ministry. I didn't go in ministry until I was 30, actually. So
what'd you do before that?
Before that, I thought the plan I had was going into firefighting. I was at the very last step of being hired at DFW Airport for fire, police, and EMT stuff. And I couldn't pass the test because of the way I breathe. And, everything else was working out. It was definitely a God thing, but I ended up going into full-time camping right out of college. So that was just right after I left camping. I worked at a camp for 4 years for chronically and terminally ill kids called Camp John Mark. It's an incredible place. And that's what Tammy and I thought we'd do all our life. And God gave us that season of 4 years. And he said, well, okay, you're done. So, it was disappointing, but looking back, I see what took place. We went to full-time ministry, and First Church was in De Leon, Texas. It's right in kind of the center of Texas. I was a student pastor there. And went from there. We're there 5 years, went to Seminole for 10 years where I was a student in missions. And then fell to the dark side, became a pastor.
It's a different world.
It is. I'll take student ministry anytime. Adults scare me. And, went to Weatherford church that had gone through they'd been hurt bad. Went there were 13 people whenever God, it was just a bad situation. And left there and came Telephone. So here we are now. It's crazy. It's been 20 something years, but that's kind of the ministry for us.
Yeah. And 8 years here.
Yeah.
Right. So how did you come to faith in Jesus? Like, did you grow up in church? Was your family involved? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah. Doors were open when we were in church. My dad, he was a pastor, principal, and we lived in the Hershey-less Bedford area all our life. Went to First Baptist Church, Bedford, and ended up at a church called Woodland Heights before I graduated and stuff. But yeah, I just grew up in it, and it was just kind of second nature, which is good and bad. It was good and bad for me. Didn't live a life of Christ. Went forward probably when I was 8 and got baptized, got wet, basically. It wasn't until probably, I don't even remember. I was probably about 16 when I came to realize that I just got wet and gave my life to Christ. And everything's good there until I go to college. Everything goes south at that point.
Been there.
Yeah. It's just one of those things. I got away from home and lived my life, but you learn from it and keep going and you can reflect back. And I think that's been so much positive part of ministry that I can look back and relate to people that are dealing with that or has that situation and stuff. So.
I know for me, Proverbs 22:6 is like almost like a life verse because, I was raised in church and dad was a deacon, parents taught Sunday school, all that stuff. And I did all the right things for all the wrong reasons because I led prayer before the football games on the football team and baseball. I was the prayer captain or whatever they call it. And then went to college and had a similar experience. And it was my first time of freedom. And I did all the stuff, I mean, I was pledging a fraternity and there was a party frat and did all this stuff. And then through that is how I realized that I didn't have a 16-year-old realization. Mine was a 19-year-old realization. And I was like, maybe I've been wrong this whole time. Maybe this is my parents' faith that I've been living out instead of mine, And so I had a similar deal. But Proverbs 22:6 says, train a child up in the way they should go. When they're old, they won't depart from it. And I remember sitting in my college apartment going, I know the answers here. Like I know what I should do because I've been trained the right way. I'm just not doing it, And so that was a major conviction time for me when I was able to, I feel like I accepted Christ right then because I just said, okay, God, I need you to take over. And that surrender had never happened in my life. I wanted Savior when I was about 10, but I didn't want Lord.
Right.
And at that point, it's where those two things merged together.
It's kind of the same thing for me whenever I was in college. Just being stupid and realizing, I guess I kind of took the trip of the prodigal son and realized, man, I don't want to be here. I want to be there. And just eating crow and saying, I can't do it.
Oh, yeah. So you talked about some different places that you served. You served as a pastor. You served as a youth pastor. Tell us a little bit about the current church you're at. Tell us about Telephone Baptist Church and also Telephone the community. And I will say Sam Rayburn, the school that's there too, because it is a town because there's a post office, right?
Right.
So it is a legit town. It's on a map.
It is.
So and it's in the phone book and stuff. So if people still use those. But tell us just a little bit about that community, kind of what it's like and a little bit about your church.
Yeah, nobody's ever heard of Telephone. And it's one of those things, it's a rural setting, which was great during COVID because y'all were shut down here and cows never shut down in rural settings. So it was great during that time. But Telephone is just I don't know what the word I'd use. It's just a country town. And, moving from Weatherford to Telephone is like, that's night and day.
Oh, yeah.
I'd drive to church. I'd stop at Chick-fil-A every day almost. Now I walk across the street and there's nowhere to stop. But, it's a place that people are real. And that's one thing I've seen being in rural churches. I've been in 2 rural churches. Well, 3 really kind of. People are a lot more real. I think that's what being in a rural church, you have to be real as a pastor. And I think it's a blessing to be there because in a town, even Bonham size, you kind of got to put on this mask almost. And of saying, well, this is who I am. And, it's hard, I think harder in larger towns to let your mask down sometimes. Whereas in a rural town, I think if you don't, then you're going to be not ostracized, but people aren't going to respect you. And say you're in the Metroplex or something, you can say you're a pastor and it's like, oh, you're supposed to have respect. I think this just kind of, and probably going off of what you're talking about, but I think that's where pastors miss it a lot. I have this title, so you should respect me. And I think that's a joke, the truth. And you can't do that in a little town. You got to be out there getting to know people because just church, it's just a building to them. And until they see you're real and get to know who you are and they know you care or whatever you want in their business. So they really let a guard down to come in to be vulnerable. I think it's a little bit different in a rural setting than even the size of Bonham. It's a type setting.
I grew up on my grandparents' farm. Right.
Yeah.
They gave my parents, I think that was strategic. They gave my parents, when we were real young, they gave them some land on the corner of their hay meadow right across from their house. And I think they were planning on having grandsons, because I remember a couple summers, or a couple winters, my brother's job was when it got really cold. My grandpa was like, I'll give y'all a heifer at the end of the winter if y'all will go feed the cow, put hay out and stuff.
Right.
So we hauled hay some and we'd get on the tractor some and of course we loved it because they're pond, we were fishing and all that stuff. But I think you're right. There's something about like in the fire service, a lot of times around here, even in some of the Metroplex cities that, people, because of the shift we work, 24/48, my full-time job, there are 48/96 or whatever the schedule is. You can afford to drive an hour, 2 hours. Some people drive 3 hours, to come to work. And so a lot of times when it's like, well, tell me about this new hire that we got. Well, he's a good old country boy. And there's some things that we associate with that. And it's, They probably have common sense. They're probably able to figure problems, and they probably tell it like it is,
Sure.
And so, and that goes along with what you're saying, I think, is that
Yes.
they want somebody to come in and tell it like it is. They want somebody to come in and not try to put the mask, the facade on, and just be real with them.
Yeah.
And I think that's right. I think you're exactly right in that.
And, not everybody's meant for a rural setting.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell people all the time, I'm not meant to go to pastor meetings because I don't fit in very well. And I think you're kind of the same.
Yeah. I don't, that's the part about ministry that I don't like.
Yeah.
The ministry part, I like that part.
Right.
The meetings, planning, organizational stuff, I'm not good at it and I don't like it.
Right. Right. And you to go into pastor meetings, whether it's here or in Dallas or wherever it may be, to see people that are so of being who they really are or letting people see who they really are is really sad
Mm-hmm.
because they're telling people, trust Christ, do what Christ asked you to do. And they're not. And you and I have talked about this before, kind of wears you out that, I mean, if you're going to be that way, just be quiet.
Yeah. Yeah. Or find something else,
Yeah.
Yeah. Just write books. Just do something else,
Right.
Don't be up in front if you're not comfortable with who you are being up in front,
Sure. I say that I'm proof God has a sense of humor if I'm a pastor. So I'd much rather do student ministry. I thought I'd been camping all my life. And then I thought, well, student ministry would be all right. And then God said, "No."
Well, you've managed to kind of still hold on to some of that fun part. I'll
Sure.
say the camp ministry stuff is fun part because like one of the things that y'all do at your church, which has bled over to us, is missions, like Honduras,
Right.
overseas missions, because we've become really passionate about that. Matter of fact, I had Jake Rogers, my friend that I met from Alabama a couple of weeks ago on. And the only reason that we connected is because we went to Honduras. And the only reason we went to Honduras is because last year you took your group to Honduras and several of our people went with y'all. So you still get to do the cool thing about ministry is you still get to do some of that fun stuff like that, and going out. You're not technically camping, but you kind of are. If you've ever been on a mission trip, it kind of is like that. So
absolutely. And I think what I've seen, the camp I was at, Camp John Mark, it was for chronically ill kids. And what I've never really realized this until just recently, but the camps we did those camps because those kids may not be able to come back, or they may not even be here anymore to come back. And I've begun to kind of have this attitude of if I serve that hard for those kids, making sure they had a good time or got to experience something, why can I not do that in ministry? Because we're not promised tomorrow.
mm-hmm.
And it's ministry's not about, and I know this is leadership stuff. Ministry's not about you or I. And we can't. Sounds like I'm beating up on pastors. I may be, but so many pastors think, well, I'm here, so you ought to be here, or this church is about me. And I've said this to you, wears me out whenever a pastor says my church. Well, brother, it's not your church. Those people get rid of you anytime. They're going to stay.
Yeah.
So if we have the attitude that's mine, then we're missing it. And I learned that from the pastor that I grew up under. His name was Clyde Glazner. He was just an incredible pastor and friend. Just watching him minister, it was never about him. It was about, and I think that's kind of where I learned to be out and do other things.
So talking about being out doing other things, I want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
So you were talking about how, and I wondered how you got into volunteer firefighting, and your story helps me see that a little bit. So is that something that you've done consistently since you were a pastor too? Once you weren't able to get that initial career full time, have you consistently done that? Is it something you started when you got the telephone?
No, I didn't De Leon. I was a volunteer fireman there, and I was, I guess, for 4 years. Did that. Went to Seminole. Seminoles are just different. It's larger, and I was learning, and it took me 10 years to learn. But came here and just saw the opportunity. And it's just one of those things. It's an opportunity to be out amongst people, and you know this better than I do for sure. You see them when they're vulnerable. You see them at the lowest at times, and it's just an opportunity to not like come to my church for this, but just to be there for them, and they know what you do, and just kind of give that level of, I guess, comfort maybe or assurance. I'm not sure. But I enjoy it. It's fun, and I get to meet a lot of people. Pretty social, so I like to meet a lot of people.
Do y'all have several people from the church too that are involved in that, or?
We have a few. Yeah, not too many, but it's been neat to watch how it's growing, and it's becoming pretty exciting. And it's neat since I've been a part, it's been a good time. But there's just that atmosphere of working together.
I was a volunteer for about a year when I was in school. I
Okay, yeah.
volunteered here before I got hired at Sherman for full time. And what are some challenges that you face with the volunteer part? 'Cause a majority of firefighters in the United States are volunteer. They're not paid. They
Right.
don't do it for. They're not a career firefighter. They're giving up their time to do it.
Sure.
They have other jobs and they just show up when the call comes in.
Right.
And so they wearing their street clothes, whatever it is, and go throw on their gear to go fight fire. So what are some challenges you face in doing the volunteer thing?
Yeah, I think for myself is figuring out what his call is. Do I need to go change clothes before I go? And then heading out to whatever it is. But one of the challenges is being at telephone and being at the church. I'm one of the few that's there all the time, majority of the time. And others have their jobs they have to go do. Sometimes it's like, man, I hope somebody's around. And I think that's kind of the challenge. But at the same time, seeing people step up and to do that. But as far as the challenge, I guess it's anybody that's part of a fire department, whether it's paid or volunteer. You never know when the tone's going to go off.
Yeah. And sometimes, regardless of what the dispatch information is, it's not always right. And we sometimes get frustrated with dispatch for that, but it's usually not their fault.
That's true.
because
It's what they've received.
It's what they've received. And sometimes people, who knows what they say on the phone, and then dispatch just says, well, here's what you've got. You show up, it's like, this is not at all what you said.
Right.
This is not near as bad or
Sure.
way worse
Sure.
than
Sure.
what I heard.
And being on the telephone, obviously you've been out there several times. The reception's terrible.
Oh,
So
yeah,
you never know
yeah,
what you're
yeah.
going to get.
You definitely have to use your radios a
That's
lot more
right.
probably out there
Absolutely.
than versus your phones. How do some of those challenges though with firefighting about not knowing what you're walking into? Can you see any way that those kind of relate to pastoral ministry in some ways?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, it's just, you see people at their lowest at times, but you see them when they're searching. And I think the ministry part is so much the same, that if we're truly doing ministry, then we're going to find people at their lowest. We're going to find them at their good times, but they're going to see that no matter where they're at, we're going to be available. And whether it's through the fire or as a minister, that no matter what time. And I call it, I try to let people know that, man, I want 3 a.m. call, and to be that 3 a.m. call if somebody needs to call someone. So it's the firefighting thing. Tone goes off at 3, you're getting up. But I want people to realize that, and I think you're the same way, that if somebody needs something at 3 a.m., I'm not turning my phone off.
Yeah. I may not wake up when it goes off.
That's right.
But if I do,
may have to call
I'll
a couple
answer it.
times.
Yeah. If I wake up, I'll
Right.
answer it. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think there's a lot of similarities to it, just the availability at times.
Yeah. So another, I'll say extra pastoral duty that you have is you do a lot of stuff with the local school district out there.
Yes.
You're at the school a lot. Like I'm there a lot, but my wife's a counselor there. My kids are both teenagers in high school there. I know your wife's there, and your daughter's there, but I feel like that even if they weren't, you'd still be there a lot. So,
Yeah.
so kind of tell me some of the things that you do to be involved with school.
Sure. Just whatever I can. I enjoy doing that whenever I can, but just to be there, just to be a face. And so many students, whatever size town you're in, or in Frisco, bottom, telephone, they need somebody that's consistent, that they know that they'll be there. And, and I'm not trying to, I know you and I have talked about this before, and we're not like patting ourselves on the back, but we just have that opportunity to be there and be a consistent face for people. And we're not trying to look what we did, but it's just an opportunity, and reaching out to that opportunity and stepping in the door. And, it's whether it's a trunk or treat or subbing or just being at a game, just being there. And I think it really, and again, larger places, you may have 12 schools you got to cover. You can't do that. But in a smaller place, you can be a face. And I go because I care and I'm interested. And for you and I, it's nice to have somebody say, "Yeah, I'm interested in what you're doing." And I know what you do is a lonely job, whether it's in fire or as a minister. It's a lonely job. And it's important for us as ministers to step up and say, we're not here just because we have to. We're here because we want to. And you do such a great job of that too. And
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I have a lot of people, one sitting here with me right now, that I can look to say, man, that's a good example for me, of people who I can look to, and I think that's important is that we encourage each other, to try to serve because I was meeting with a guy just this last week and we were talking about ministry and stuff. And he's kind of in a kind of a place of frustration a little bit. And he's like, you know what that's like? And I'm like, do know what that's like, and he's like, well, you're not there now. And I'm like, I don't feel like I'm there now, but I've been there multiple times, and I think
you
that's
can get there real quick.
yeah.
Too.
And I think it's important for us to be able to bounce that stuff off each other. Sometimes we get rolled up and bounced around in life. And then we need somebody to kind of help us, roll back the right way and, almost like a turtle. Okay. Help me roll back over so I can keep going very slowly in the direction I feel led to go,
I think as Bodie Bachman said this, that ministry is the greatest calling you can have. It's the worst calling you can have at the same time.
I think that's right. So, Connor, my son, 16, a couple of years ago at camp, he felt called to ministry. Of course, I've been in ministry 23 years. We've been married 21. So my wife this is what she knows, and for 15, I've been a full-time firefighter too. So she knows that now too, but she's always helped with everything church. I say that she's probably better at my job than I am, honestly. And your wife probably too. If I were to go somewhere and they say, what are your best attributes? I'll say, well, here's number one, it's her. Right. And then here's some things I'm decent at, you know what I mean? But she's good at what she does. But, because she's seen ministry so much, I remember my son at camp came down and talked to me one night and he's like, Dad, I feel like God may be calling me to ministry. And we talked and we prayed through that and I encouraged him and we talked about it. What does that look like? And you don't have to know exactly what that means right now, but just say yes to God and follow him and you'll end up where you need to be. When we walked out and my wife was there at the youth camp. So she comes out, she sees us come out and I'm of course proud dad. I'm a little teary eyed, and I have to pray with my son and Connor's teary eyed and she said, what was that about? And I said, Connor feels called to ministry. And she said, her immediate words were, oh no,
don't do it.
She said, oh no. I mean, he's smart. He's got a life ahead. Right. I was like, what are you saying? But it was, because of the fact that she's seen that there's hurt sometimes, it's difficult. It is lonely, like you said. And I think that's why it's so important to have other godly men, other godly friends, couples, whatever it is, Christian friends, but even friends in ministry, and I think it's even better when you're not at the same church. Yeah. Because if your friend, all of your godly Christian friends are at the same church, you're kind of like, I can't talk about it. Yeah, I can't talk about this with them because maybe my frustration is them, and not that it's a forever frustration, but maybe in that moment it's them. I need to vent, or whatever. And I think that's so important for us to have that. And it's in any job. Fire service is the same way. Like we'll talk about, man, our department is doing this, and other guys are like, that's ridiculous. I'm like, yeah, it is, and I probably shouldn't be saying this either, but the flip side though, other departments are guys will say, man, our department's doing this. And I'm like, man, we are doing an awesome job at these things, and they're like, well, we wish we did that. And it just being able to say, we struggle too. We're not perfect. You're not perfect. Let's help each other along.
Absolutely. And it's, the thing about ministry, I think, is nobody understands it. Mm-hmm. And I know you get these questions. Well, when's your day off? Or you don't have a day off.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what are you going to do today? Some days you don't know.
Yeah. But whatever comes around, comes along.
Yeah. Whatever happens. I know these things I need to do, but chances are I'm not going to get to them. Mm-hmm. And it's just its own little animal.
Yeah. Well, another extra pastoral thing that you do is reffing.
Yes, sir.
So you do you're everywhere reffing, it seems like. So you do basketball, right?
Yes, that's all I do.
You just do basketball. Okay.
Yeah, you can,
but you do a lot of it.
I do. I ref for the Paris chapter. So we go, I guess, south of Paris, all the way up to Bells now. So we'll be all over the place. But it's a blessing to get to hang out with some different guys. And, it's been kind of a ministry. There's a few officials that are pastors, and we get to talk. And like you said, just have that interaction with somebody, and we'll ride the games or whatever. You get to visit about this going on in my life or that's going on in my life. Just to be able to either vent or say, man, I need help. It is neat. But it's also been a ministry too, because we've had the opportunity to just visit with people we'll be talking about reffing, and then all of a sudden it's just kind of opened a door to reach out to folks or allow them to reach out. It's a neat thing. I like it. You asked about what probably the funniest thing that's ever happened to me is, unfortunately, it's me and the lines on the court. Some courts, they'll jump up on you. Mm-hmm. And just taking a tumble at Dodge City, just rolling a few times, hopping back up. But I still hear about it. And that was 3 years ago.
Well, and for people that can't tell from looking at video, I'm like 5'10". Yeah. You're not. How
I'm
tall are
I'm
you?
6'6".
You're pretty tall. So do you ever just go and when kids are shooting around and just swat them
Every now and
for
then.
fun? Yeah.
Check their attitude first. But yeah, it's a good time. And it is fun to interact. That's
And I'm guessing, so I know your kids played sports and stuff. I know your
Yeah.
son played football, played college football,
Yes.
right? And then Kendall's coaching volleyball played. Your other daughter, I'm sure, did some stuff
Yes.
too. So were y'all just always were you always active too like that? Or
Yeah, I was blessed. I got to play. I went to Odie Bell, which is a 5'8" then. It'd be a 6'8" now. And got to play a little bit there, but then had the opportunity to try to walk on and everything. Got to play 3 years there. So it Tammy's we've adjusted her. She's become more competitive. It was kind of in the blood, and
Mhm.
is games at home always can get interesting.
Mhm.
Nobody wants to lose.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's always fun. But yeah, it's just kind of something we've done. And like you now, you're traveling to games, and then baseball start, you're traveling basketball.
Mm.
It's one of those things you just. And I told somebody the other day, their kids little. I said, "Man, eat it up because it
Yeah.
doesn't last."
It goes by fast, really fast. So we talked about you're involved in community, you're involved in school. Would you say that that's intentional, that you're on purpose trying to be involved in those things? Or is it just like, we don't have anything else to do, so let's go do it?
No, I make it intentional. I've always enjoyed doing that, and being in a rural small school right out of ministry is something really I think I thrive at. It gives me energy. And when I am at home, knowing something's going on, I'm not a very good it's not a very good place for me to be.
Mm.
But at the same time, Tammy and I are just completely different. She'd love to be at home. And I don't like to be at home. So it's one of those things we've had to adjust. It took me a long she adjusted a lot easier than I did. It took me a while to figure it out. But just
I
like
noticed you drag her along a lot.
she does.
She's
Yeah. But I also know you were talking about churches and stuff. I know why they keep me around. Tammy's got a big load to carry now. It was the kids at Tammy. They just let me stay. Now, Tammy's got a big load to keep me around. So, you know, like you said, we know that we're the good part.
Oh yeah, for sure. So it's important for you to do that. Do you think so? It's one thing for us as ministers to say, I feel led to be a part of the community. I feel led to serve in these ways. What about just a normal church member, the normal Christian man, woman, whoever? Do you think it's important for them to step into those opportunities as well when they can?
Sure. I think it is that they see. I mean, I'm sure I show up at games, people say, well, he asked. But if somebody else shows up, then they don't have any kids. Man, that speaks volumes about how you care for your community.
Mhm.
And that was something in dealing out in Seminole. People showed up because they had a passion. They had I guess there was a spirit within the school of the school had good spirit, I guess,
Mhm.
of they wanted to be there because that was their school. And same thing in church. People wanted to be there because they wanted to be there. And that's another thing about rural church. Somebody new shows up, you know they're there. If you're in a big church, it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, as you look off the stage, you're like, I think I know them. And they may have been here 6 weeks and you're like, is this your first Sunday? And that's hard sometimes.
Yeah. That's where we're starting to be is, my first Sunday, I think there were 46 here 15 years ago. It's almost 16 years ago. And that's not the case now.
Right.
And Melissa and I were talking to my wife that it's a good thing, but it's kind of a sad thing at sometimes too, because there's that close knit group when you feel like all right, there's about 50 of us. And if this is going to be successful, all 50 of us have to do it. You know what I mean? And just the unique bond that's created and it's serving together in that way when you feel like that, all right, if we don't get this done, it won't get done.
Right.
To now being at the point where it's like, okay, do we need to do no, these people are doing this, or this person's taking care of this. Like, I don't even know who that person is, so it is kind of a weird place
It is
to be.
weird. And I think, and it's something that you're adjusting to well as y'all go.
I don't know if it's well, but we're trying to
Yeah.
adjust. Wouldn't say well.
But yourself, it's you could hide behind all that and say, I'm just gonna do my thing. But you don't. You step out there and you're like, here I am, whether you want me or not. Sure.
Yeah.
And and members in a larger church, they can hide. In a rural church, man, they know you came, and then somebody's gonna ask you about it the next day, probably if they see you.
Yeah.
And I think that's a difference.
What's the other impact of just being somewhere? So you've been there 8 years. Can you see benefits of being there 8 years versus if you were only there 2 years and then somebody else came in and somebody else came in and somebody else came in? Is there any benefit to just longevity, you think?
Yeah, I think trust. People can trust you, and I hope they can trust me. That's the plan anyway. But knowing that there's a commitment there, I guess. Every time we've left church, it wasn't a plan, but God said it's time. It wasn't something we wanted to do a lot of times, And, we can get so, if we're talking about leadership and stuff, we can get so content where we're at that we miss what God tells us to.
Mhm.
And we can get so safe that God wants to use us somewhere else. And we just miss those opportunities if we say, well, pastors, I think, are the worst of when God wants to do something. Well, no, it's just automatic. Whenever longevity, which you have here, not only here at the church, but people in town see you and know you're here until God says something else. And the longevity, but then the faithfulness. You're faithful to where you're called. But then if they see you obey, they get to see your faithfulness of you don't want to, but you're going to do what God called you to do. So as far as longevity, just getting to know people, getting to let them see who you are, the good and the bad. And again, I think that's so important that you're having a bad day and do something dumb. They see you, and that's okay. That as pastors, we're humans. We're going to screw it up. But to let somebody see how God walks you through that, they see that, man, they're a real person. They're not putting on, not trying to be fake. You can't be fake out there. They see it.
I was at a church one time where the pastor was acknowledging some nothing, not spectacular sins or anything, like what we think is, huge, but just acknowledging some failures he had and some places he wanted to do better at. And he had a person in the church and leadership come up to him and say, "You're supposed to be up on a pedestal, and we look to you to lead us, and we don't need to know about your faults." And the pastor was like, "Who put me up there?
That's right.
I didn't ask that there, And there's something about just that, like you said, that honesty, that being forthcoming with stuff, just saying, you know what, I mess up just like y'all do. I need forgiveness just like y'all do, from God and from you guys sometimes. And that does create kind of more of a unique bond, I think, and where people, that's part of trust too. When they look at you and think that you're perfect, I think sometimes they're hesitant to come to you with their things because they're like, well, he doesn't understand. No, listen, I understand. If you're talking about, that you messed up and made your wife mad, believe me, I understand it, or if you failed her in some way, believe me, I understand.
Right.
Or if you hurt somebody, or you did something and disappointed your kids, believe me, I understand. So I mean, I think that's important for us to be able to, in ministry and in life, I think we have to be willing to do that, and that's part of leadership. Is acknowledging your failures. And the crazy thing about leadership is that if you're in a position of leadership, it's weird because I've heard it described as you take blame for all the failures and you give credit away for all the successes, and I think that's a lonely place to be, but I think it's the right place to be.
Right. I agree with you. Once somebody sees you as a leader do that, then they're like, they can take a breath of, I don't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
And I know you see this, you walk in the room, oh, the pastor's here, and the room changes, which we need to be room changers, but not to the point of, I want somebody to be real with me. I don't care. It's not going to, just don't be stupid.
Yeah.
But just, if that's who you are, that's who you are. We'll work on it.
So tell me this, and with the fire part and reference stuff, you've got a foot in pastor world, church world and secular world a little bit too.
Right.
And that's me, because full-time firefighter and pastor. So there's times where people, especially when I first started in the fire service, because I've been a pastor full-time for 7 years before I went to fire school.
Sure.
So when I come in and they know that I'm a pastor too, there's some of them that would say, they would specifically, well, I'm sorry I said that in front of you, or don't talk about it anymore. He's here. And now I don't know what to think, because sometimes there's still people that do that. And then there's sometimes that people just have that conversation. And I'm like, what am I hearing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it shows they're comfortable enough with me, and they know that there's not. And I tell people when they do apologize, I'm sorry I said that. I'm like, listen, I'm not your judge.
Right.
And I promise I've been in ministry long enough. I'm in my 40s. I'm old enough. And I've been a firefighter for sure long enough now that nothing you say is going to offend me. I've heard every word.
You've been in locker rooms.
Yes. Played sports. I did all that. I mean, so you're not going to offend me, but I'm not the one we have to worry about offending.
Sure.
It's not me. You're not going to offend me. I've had some of those people who will have those conversations where it's like, can't believe they just said that, but I'm going to let it go, and won't say anything. But then those same people come to me and talk about, what does y'all's church believe about this? And they'll have those God conversations. But if I was the one saying, you can't talk like that, they're not going to, they're not going to come see me. You know what I mean?
Exactly right.
So I think it's important to have feet in both worlds.
Sure.
And like in the Bible says, to be in the world, but not of the world.
Yeah.
You still got to be in it,
Right.
And if you're not in it at all, people can't relate to you.
Yeah. We can't hide in our buildings in our Jesus life or whatever, because we're not going to be reaching out to anyone. Just like you said, we're not diving into this world, but it's okay if we put our foot in there and say, hey, I'm here to pull you out of this world.
Yeah.
To give give you an idea of what it's like not to.
What's a good lesson, leadership lesson that you've learned somewhere along the way through firefighting, through camp ministry, through pastoral ministry, marriage, raising 3 good kids, I mean, who are successful in their own right? What's a good lesson or something that you've learned along the way?
The thing I've learned more than anything is be who you are. Don't try to fake it, because I mean, the truth's going to come out. I mean, the scripture tells us that you can't hide in the darkness because the light's going to shine out. And I said it earlier, let them see the bad. Let them see who you are, what you're struggling with. I mean, Tammy says, you probably share too much. And then other people tell me, you share too much. I'm like, well, I'm just going to share. And last week at church, we were talking about just how we need others not to look at where they were, but where to look at who they are now and what Christ has done and how they got through there. And I just shared about how Tammy and I went through counseling. And it's nothing to be ashamed of. Is there were some things that we were dealing with, and we couldn't do it ourselves. And we tried, but that was terrible because I'm definitely not a counselor. I just screwed up more. But I went to a friend of mine who was a counselor, and he's like, "Man, you're fine. You're just letting these things dog you. So let's get rid of those things." And people are so afraid. I need help. Man, I need help every day. And like you said, that interaction with others is huge in how we can interact and help each other. Because like we said, ministry is its own little animal. And people don't understand it a lot of times.
Well, I know you told one about getting rolled up, falling down on basketball court. Any other good stories? Ministry, firefighting, reffing, parenting thing? Anything funny, anything good that's come along? I'm sure there's a lot, but
yeah, it's some of the things you don't want to tell just because you tell them or whatever. I think one of the funniest things as far as ministry was I went to homecoming. I was visiting with the guy, and he was like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm ministering now." He goes, "No, really. What are you doing?" I just looked at him. I was like, "Dude, God can change anybody." We just started laughing about it. And, just laughing at ourselves is healthy. And just saying, "Yeah, I was, but now I'm not." And it just makes you laugh to think about where I was. At times, I'll just drive down the road and think, "Man, you're no reason God should use you." And just to think about His grace that He provided. And you probably talk to some of your football guys that may not know what you're doing or something. They're like, "What?"
yeah.
And that's pretty cool. But as far as funny things, just the things that take place, just daily almost. But the things you can look back on and say, "Man, that was cool." And I can't think of anything just specific, really. There's so many, I think.
Yeah, that's the problem. The problem is narrowing it down. Yeah. Well, I'm just, I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful for your ministry. I'm thankful for your impact in that community because that's where my wife and my kids are. And I'm there a lot too because they're there. But I'm thankful for that. And again, like some of my kids' friends go to your church and stuff like that. And I know a lot of the people that go there. And I know people that I work with at the fire department that are members of your church and just drive like I do to the next big town for a better salary. So, but I'm thankful for you, Jase. I'm thankful for your family and for your ministry. Thank you for being here today. Thank you guys for watching, for listening. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share so more people can hear this content. We'll catch you next time on Called to Lead.